Alrighty, so I'm going to make a quick tutorial here on how to get a fresh repository set up with React, Webpack, and TypeScript. It's not a, you don't really have to know this, but it's nice to know when, say, you have an existing React application that supports exclusively JavaScript, and you want to start introducing some TypeScript in there as well. So we're going to create a fresh React project with Webpack, so no create React app or anything like that. I already have a Git repository initialized, not necessary for this, and I have a package.json initialized with npm init-y. That's npm init-y like that. So first thing we want to do is we want to install some development dependencies with npm I save dev. We want Webpack, we want Babel core, we want TS loader, we want, what do we want? TS node, and obviously we want TypeScript. So let's go ahead and install those guys. Okay, and the first thing we want to do is create a webpack.config.ts. It's much easier to write a Webpack config in TypeScript rather than having to do it in a JSON file or JavaScript. This allows you to import blank from blank as opposed to requiring something, and provides you a more strongly typed Webpack config. So first thing we want to do is import blank from Webpack. We want to import our configuration from Webpack. Also, we want to npx tsc init. This is going to create a new tsconfig.json file. This tells TypeScript how we're going to compile everything down. I'm going to change target to ES6, and I'm going to tell JSX we want to have React JSX. We do want to allow JavaScript in here. No, I'm sorry. Allow JavaScript in here. Let's see. We want strict yes. No implicit any. This makes it so you have to actually have strongly typed TypeScript in here. Don't use locals. Okay. We want our base URL set here. Module resolution node. This allows us to use import blank from blank when there's no like actual exported something. So if they're using module.exports, this will parse that down and allow you to, instead of saying require, use an import statement. And this right here allows synthetic default imports. This obviously allows you to say import React from React, even though React doesn't have a default export. Usually you would have to say import star as React from React. Let's see, I think for now this should be good. We're going to go through this paths option here in a bit. So now that we have that in there, we want to export default function. And this function is going to return a configuration. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to turn an object. The entry in this object is going to be /source index.tsx. So let's go ahead and make a source folder and a index.tsx. Now that we have an index.tsx, let's just try to get something displaying on the screen. So we're going to npm I react and react DOM. I'm not going to worry about Redux or anything. Import React. Now it's going to say that there are no there's no typings for React right here, so this is something you'll run into a lot. So we want to npm I save dev types and React, and then we want to also have DOM. I think that'll work. I guess not. React at type/React DOM. Alright, so now we have types for React in here, import React DOM from React DOM, and then React DOM dot render And then our document dot query selector. We want to look for the root element and render it there, which also means that we want to create a index.html and populate that with a root ID in here. Okay, theoretically speaking, we should now be able to inject this right here into this right here, but it will not work. If I go into my package.json and I add a build script in here, let's just do that, npm run build. Alright, so it's going to tell you that it wants to install Webpack CLI. Yes, we do. Alright, so it doesn't know how to parse JSX yet. So for that, we need to get some loaders going in here. Mode. We want to make the mode, actually, mode. We'll just make this development for right now. You can do some fancy trickery in here, like saying process.env.node env equals production, then production, otherwise development. All right, so here we have our module. This is all of our rules in here. Actually, this is our rules in here. So rules is an array. An array that we're going to have objects. We're going to run some tests, and here we're going to test file names. So I'm going to put a regular expression in here. I'm going to say anything that has a .js with an optional x, or ts with an optional x, and it ends with that. So anything that's JS, JSX, TS, or TSX, we want to use TS loader. Okay. So now let's build it. All right. So we've actually got a build now. So we've done our thing. Let's go ahead and install one more thing in here. Come on. npm I save dev HTML. So this HTML Webpack plugin. What do you want? All right, sorry about that. We had some work VPN issues. All right, so we got the HTML Webpack plugin here. So now that we are actually using webpack.config.ts, we can actually import HTML Webpack plugin from HTML Webpack plugin. Notice it has its own type declarations. That's why we don't have to import the typing system from it. So now we'll put in some plugins, and we will have a new HTML Webpack plugin with a configuration. Our template will be import path from path. This is what I mean here. If you didn't have the module resolution as node, you would not be able to import path from path. You'd have to have like import star as path from path. But we want to import like that. And so we're going to say path.join the dir name with source and index.html. And what else do we have in here? We want to inject it into the we want to inject it into the head. This is going to inject our source JS file into the head, and we're going to change our script loading to defer. Okay, so that will load the whole HTML file before it starts loading scripts, so that way the HTML file doesn't get blocked while it's loading. So let's go ahead and build that again. And we should get a HTML file in here. And there's the HTML file. And if you'll see here in our head, we have our source script in here with our main.js. So last thing we want to do is we want to npm I save dev webpack dev server. It's a pretty long install. So after our plugins, we want to save DevTool. Is it DevTool or is it? Oh, hold on. npm I save dev at /webpack dev server. This will add the dev server type to the Webpack configuration, so that way you can go and put in your dev server like this, and it's still strongly typed. Public path is going to be that. History API fallback to true. This makes it so that way when you have like React Router DOM and you're trying to do some routing like that, it'll just fall back to your index.html file, but we'll still have that React Router DOM use the URL that you inputted into there. So I believe to run the dev server now, run webpack watch, I believe. npm, let's just change that to start. Run start. All right, so there's that. We also want to tell it to open automatically and change its port to whatever port that you want. I'm going to change it to 8000 and then restart it. It should automatically open up my browser after it finishes its compilation. And it did not open my browser, so I'll just open it. Screw it. Localhost 8000, and something went wrong. One sec. All right, I opened up my previous project, and it looks like watch was not the right command. It's actually serve. So go ahead and not code that. npm run start. That should open it up. There we go. And let's make sure that everything loads correctly on here. And we have ourselves a hello world. And if you've noticed, this actually is a TSX file, so it is loading the TypeScript in here, so that's fantastic. And so yeah, we have our TS config in here, and we have our Webpack working with our TS config, and we are parsing TypeScript. The last thing that we really want to do in here is get our paths working in here. So in our paths, we want to define what our aliases are and where they map to. So this is going to be an object record of a string and a string. So we're going to have our, let's just say components /*. So the /*, what it is it just says everything that's aliased components. We want to also resolve anything that's underneath the components directory alias. So it's going to expect an array. Really only need one object in that array, and it's the actual directory of where components live. So in this case, we're just going to say source/components. We don't have a components folder yet, so components. Let's go ahead and create a app.tsx import React from React and export default function app. We want to return, let's return hello world again. So now in our index.tsx, we can actually import app from @components/ app. I don't know why that's not really working. Did I do that correctly? we want to gotta do the slash star on there, everything that's in the components folder. And now it has been resolved. The problem is, I don't think that this will compile because we're not telling Webpack that it needs to respect the tsconfig aliases. So if I open up my console again, that worked. But if I go ahead and render app like so, then it's going to say reload is prevented. What's wrong? It can't find components/app. So what we need here is we need a plugin for Webpack to resolve these aliases. So let me just go to my other screen real fast and figure out. We need the tsconfig paths plugin, and that is npm I save dev tsconfig paths Webpack plugin. These plugins really can get wordy. So import paths plugin from tsconfig paths Webpack plugin. So after our module, it doesn't really matter, but it's not going to be nested in module. It's going to be its own object. It'll be resolve, and then in resolve we want to resolve the following extensions: .ts, .tsx, .js, and .jsx, and we want to use the following plugins. We're going to use a new paths plugin, and our config file is going to be paths.join. In the dir name, we want our tsconfig.json. Alright, so now that that's up and running, let's go back over here and close that out, and let's start it up again and pray and hope that this resolves properly. And there we go. So we have our alias import using tsconfig. It is built properly, and Webpack is working great. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know.